welcome everyone to our Waikato Bay of Plenty branch event, the first one for the year, online event. We've been very lucky to kickstart early into the year, and I have to give a big thanks to Isabel at PNZ for supporting the work to get the message out to everyone. This evening I'd like to introduce you to the person who's presenting tonight. He is on your screens as we speak. He moved to New Zealand from Canada with his lovely wife Ashley, 2 cats and a dog 7 years ago. He's going for his 3rd Dan black belt in Haedong Gum Do, which is a Korean sword martial art, and he runs his own club in Whakatane where he has trained a world champion. He has 2 health conditions that can cause pain. Melanocytosis, hemochromatosis. Yep, I don't have my glasses on, font's quite small. He has 3 boys, Oliver, and 14-month-old twins, Felix and Leo. He is one of New Zealand's only hypno physiotherapists. Please give a big smile and a wave in the chat to Daniel Degenhart, who is going to speak for us this evening. Welcome, Daniel.
Thank you, Fiona. The story I'm about to tell you finishes with self-sabotage. A few years ago, I was a community physiotherapist working as at the Whakatane Hospital, and part of that role was supervising physiotherapy students from Auckland. And I loved doing that part of the job. And at that point, I had a curious 4th year who had already had previous placements at the Whakatane Hospital. And at that point, I was actually in the process of studying and learning hypnosis, with the language patterns being one of the first things that I learned about. So I was already introducing these language patterns into my own life and into some of my clients, and having discussions about that with my student too. And within the community physio role, my student was going to perform her first assessment. And luckily, it was actually on a client that she knew. She had a rehab placement prior, and it was someone that, a middle-aged lady who had a stroke and had a very extensive hospital stay, but was now back at home. And we were going into her community or into her home to assess her function and see how things were going in the months since she was in the hospital. So the goal was for both of us to go in, but to me to be that fly on the wall, let my student do what they did best and do all the heavy lifting, and for me to just come in at the end if there's anything else that I wanted to bring up. Well, my physio student did a great job, went through a good subjective and went through, reviewed the exercises, looked at the function, and overall did a great job. At the end, she turned to me and asked, is there anything else? I just want to check with my supervisor, Daniel. Is there anything else that you want to bring up? And I looked at the client and I said, just one thing. The word try implies failure. And in that moment, the client burst into tears. She started crying and she was apologizing because she was crying and she's not usually emotional. But she then said, oh, I just realized that I've been self-sabotaging myself since I've had this stroke. I need to try, I need to believe in myself. And you see, as I was sitting off in the background, I kept hearing the client use the word try. And almost every sentence, oh, I need to try to do my exercise a little bit more. You know what? I'm doing better. I'm trying to get them in each day. And I'm also trying to get out to be social, but it's really hard since I had the stroke. And hearing that word try, it was just a little bit of a light bulb, a little trigger saying, ooh, man, this is entirely too much for that one word. After I said that, all I did was provide a definition of language that she repeatedly used, and she immediately understood. And that experience caused a shift. Part of her homework after that was eliminating that word try from her vocabulary. I recommended telling a friend or a family member, someone that she's close to, that they can both eliminate it from their own lives. The idea, make it a bit of a game, make it a bit cheeky so that you can call each other out on it. And I told my physio student in that session with the client there, hey, if you ever hear her use the word try, call her out. and it was a little bit of a fun and laughter. And it was a great way to reframe and change some of that language. That shift, more so than I think any of the exercises or the advice or the function, any of the stuff that we did, the shift that was responsible for the biggest improvement in her mood and for her getting out more socially and doing more physical activity was simply eliminating that one word, try. And that helped to eliminate her own self-sabotage. Hi, like Fiona introduced, I'm Daniel Degenhardt. I'm the Hypno Physio, and tonight you're going to learn 10 language patterns, like the word try, that can lead to client success. I'll also be providing a live hypnosis demonstration for anyone at the end who wants to reduce pain, stress, or just feel better tonight, have a better sleep. But a bit of housekeeping to start. Within this, all the mics and the videos are muted. And if you have a question, just put up your hands and Fiona can let me know and I can see that. But I want to save those questions until the end. So you'll see that there's a little chat bar where we can kind of have a bit of a conversation, anybody in the attending, but there's an actual Q&A part. Those are where you can put those questions, because I might see them and go through and answer them right away. But if not, right at the end, I'm going to make sure there's plenty of time for questions and answers. And at that time, I'm also going to introduce my other colleague, Damian Taylor. He's the other hypno physio that has a wealth of knowledge within hypnosis and language patterns as well. This presentation is recorded, so keep that in mind as well. And it might be something that you can return to. Now, all of the language patterns I go to, I'm going to provide a handout, a link to download it for free. And so you don't need to be furiously writing unless that's the way that you learn. Now, you might be wondering how I got into language patterns in hypnosis in the first place. I'm a physiotherapist. Well, I have these two conditions, mueller-hyostosis. It's a 1 in a million condition that affects my hand. I've had it since I was about 10 years old, that caused the bone to progressively grow and build even after I've developed, which impacted my nerve, and I had severe carpal tunnel impingement by my mid-20s. And that has led me on a path to hunt for healing. I became a physiotherapist for the most selfish reasons possible. I thought the professors could help me, and I thought what I learned in physio I could help myself. And hey, if I can help some other people along the way, then that's a bonus. A few years back, I saw a video of a hypnotist completely anesthetizing the back of someone's hand so much that they actually stuck a needle through it. They didn't feel it at all. My mind was blown. I thought maybe I should look into this stuff. So I started researching and found there's a lot of evidence to support hypnosis, and I started studying it. And one of the introductory things from the Mike Mindell Hypnosis Academy, they're based out of Toronto in Canada. I did online training. One of the first things they introduced is these language patterns, because they're so simple. Anybody can understand them and implement them, and they can make a big difference. So let's get into these language patterns. The first one is, let's see, hopefully you'll be able to see this. What do you want? What do you want? It's the first language pattern to introduce, and it's a great one at the beginning of an assessment or at beginning of a follow-up, because it's much better than asking what's wrong. If you ask what's wrong, everyone's going to give you a bunch of things that are happening that's wrong, and that doesn't really help with that clinical differential diagnosis. But to actually improve, no. What do you want is a question that sometimes takes people off guard. They're, oh, what do I want? Well, I want you to stop my pain, fix my back, this kind of a language. Well, now you have an understanding of where they're coming from. And that's an opportunity to educate right off the bat. Because I tell people, yeah, you might not want to have any pain, but you probably don't want to be hit by a bus or abducted by aliens, or well, some of you may in this room, who knows, no judgment. But that's something that there's a million and infinite things of what you don't want, but there's only a finite amount of things that you do want. So when you start to ask that question, what do you want? It starts to focus more on the solution instead of the problem. An example of that is the person that wanted me to fix their low back. And I said, okay, so you want your low back fixed? Okay, use their language back to them. But what is it that you actually want? And it took a little bit, but after a minute or two, I said, oh, I want to pick up my kids. Boom, there's your goal right off the bat. And that's the thing that I brought in throughout the rest of the treatments, because I can't link in that future pacing and that solution if I'm only focused on what they want to have less of. So that's the first language pattern. What do you want? The next one is simple. It's one word. How. How is it's a process word. How is something that keeps things moving instead of getting in a stuck state. If you ask, why is this happening to me? Why am I experiencing pain? Why can't I do my exercises? Your why is a magnifying glass that's going to focus on whatever you pointed at. And when you focus on the negative, it's going to bring up more and more negative. Versus if you switch that around and we change it to a, how can I help myself today? How can I do more of my exercises? It's a great way to shift it back onto them so that that person takes complete ownership of that healing process. It's not the why and the I am at cause, this is happening to me. How questions make it so that you are doing the thing. You are in the center of that experience. The whole idea of client-centered or Whānau-centered care, that center is the client. But when we use questions like, why is this, why are you feeling bad? We don't tend to do that, but we don't always challenge our clients as well. And this is where it can be a gentle, okay, you're asking about why this is happening, but let's switch it over and ask, how will this exercise improve how you feel? So it's a start to get things moving in the direction that you want. Now, this is a really great little tip for improving your effectiveness of any advice or education that you provide. So before you prescribe any education, say, we'll bring up that client with low back pain. In that experience, you might be giving them, say, some McKenzie, some prone extension exercise, and you show them how they do it and hopefully had a good response. Oh, it makes you feel better. All right, put the question to them. How often do you think you would need to do this exercise to get the most out of it? Whatever they say, agree with it. If they say, well, maybe like 3 times a day, I'm like, okay, that's great. Start with 3 times a day. You can then bring in any of the research, any of the recommendations that you might have and say, oh, well, actually the research supports doing this on an hourly basis. That's where you're going to get the best bang for your buck. But for today, I want you to just do it 3 times and notice how much better you feel. Because when you ask how and they answer it, it becomes a client-centered repetition and set that then they can link into themselves. So that's the way to use how in order to improve any of your recommendation. How is changing your posture every 20 minutes going to improve how you feel? So it kind of puts that back into their court, back into them taking that complete ownership of that process. So that's number 2. Next one is the word because. Because. This one has some interesting research with it. Because the word because enables you to send powerful commands, they're embedded commands, past what's called the critical faculty. Now that's a hypnotic term, critical faculty. It's kind of like the bouncer of the unconscious mind. You have your conscious mind is focused on what I'm saying. You're looking at the words, you're being aware of everything in your surroundings, and mostly focused in on me. But you might have some sounds from outside, some other things that you see, feel, all of those things, those messages are still coming through to your unconscious mind. Millions of bits of information every second, but your conscious mind can only focus on a few things at a time. And hopefully it's me right now. You're spending the time, and I appreciate you listening to me. So because is a way to get an embedded command right through to your unconscious mind. It kind of passes that bouncer to get a message straight through. I'm going to give you an example of this. So this is the one that has some interesting research. This was done a few decades ago, before computers were there to be able to print off any research articles and things at a library. So at a university, there'd be these big queues in front of a photocopier machine. Now, I have to admit, this is pre my time. So if you've experienced this, then maybe you can shed a little bit of a light into this for yourself, for the rest of the group. But the idea is that the researchers wanted to find how they could get to the front of the line. Basically, they wanted to find out, how can I butt in? So they looked at a whole bunch of different ways to get themselves in using language. And they found that when they said, I want to go to the front of the line because, and then put any kind of an answer, they were more likely to get, oh, that person who is right there next in line, oh yeah, sure, go on in. It's a really strange thing, but it's true. So they could say, oh, can I go in front of you because I need to do some photocopying? Well, yeah, everyone else in the line has to do some photocopying too. But that line, because if you put the command before, then everything before it just kind of slips through and, oh, okay, yeah, and they agree with it. I was working with a mother, this was a few years back, who thought, okay, this is cool, I'm going to use it with my kids. And I told her a story about how you can use this language with your kids. And she went home and told her kid, hey, Alex, go clean your room because tomorrow we're going to go out. And kid went and cleaned the room for the first time in ages. And this was something that she was hampering, and go clean the room, this and that. But just in using that word because, it just slipped right through. So now how do we bring this into the physio practice? Do your exercises every day, because it'll allow you to do what you want to get back to more of what you love. That command, do your exercises every day. There's the embedded command, because insert whatever they want. And when it links in with their goals, because it'll allow you to get back to lifting up your kids, well, then it's going to be even better, because then their conscious mind is just focused on the, oh yeah, lifting up my kid, I want to do that. What was that thing that happened before? Oh yeah, doing the exercise is cool, I got that. So use the word because, commands, because, and then whatever reason you want afterwards. This works really well with written, with text. So emails, texts, those stubborn patients that might not communicate with you as well, or maybe it's a colleague or someone that you want to reply. This is something I've used so many times. Right at the beginning, hi, so-and-so, reply to this email because I need some information, please. And then list everything down and boom, email comes. It's amazing. So because is that next language pattern. All right. Now, just going to write the next one, which I already have an introduction to, the word try. The word try implies failure. And that story I told you was the first time I really went, whoa, this stuff is powerful. It was the first time where I saw in practice how one small shift in language, one single word, can make all of the difference. And it got me real excited to learn more, because that idea of try implies failure. Think of the friend that invited you over for dinner or coffee, or, oh, hey, I'm having some people over, you want to come over? And you say, yeah, I'll try to be over there. Yeah, you both know you're not going to be there. And it's the same with your clients. When you say, okay, maybe do your exercises because they're going to be good for you. Yeah, I'll try to get them done. Well, there you go. You know that embedded command didn't work because that word try throws it off. So this is something that pretty much every one of my clients at some point, I call them out on that word try. And it's the first introduction into how language can affect our actual function, what we do. And I make it playful. I say, oh, I just noticed you said, I'll try to do my exercises, but try implies failure. So how about you just do your exercises? If you fail, that's great. You can fail with style. It's a little variation of Buzz Lightyear. I just watched Toy Story with my twins the other day. That idea of falling with style, fail with style. If you're going to go in and do an exercise, fail with style, make it worthwhile, learn something from it. And that's okay. Failure is a great way to learn. So don't be scared of it, just do the thing. So eliminating the word try, and this is the one that I would recommend for you to do in your life. After tonight, when you go to talk to your partner or friends, maybe tomorrow in the office, just talk about this word try. Notice who uses it. The negative kind of down and out personalities are going to use that word more. And that's one of the things I see in my clients. I work with quite a few people with complex persistent pain, sometimes going back years and decades, mostly under the ACC pain management service. And for those clients, they use try a heck of a lot more than the person on the street that I see, the physio colleague who's doing well. And it's that idea of self-sabotage is there. So try is a big one. All right, we're going to come back to that one a little bit at the end as well as too. All right. Next, language pattern. You're going to love this one. This one is for those clients that just go on and on and on and on and on, and they just keep telling those stories, and one story goes to the next story, and then by the time that you finish that story, you don't even remember where you started, and it messes everything up. Those subjective exams that if you're not really diligent, you'll go way over. One language pattern that can eliminate that in the tracks. Understood. That's it. You have the person telling you their life story and it's going off track. You just look them in the eye. Understood. And then if you have that brief pause is what you can then enter your next thing. Understood. And how about we go back to this part over here? Because all you need is a moment. You're calibrating their experience. You're checking in and tuning into their body language, where they're looking, the language they're using. So as you're calibrating their experience and they're going on and we're going off track, you simply make sure that you connect with their eyes. Understood. It's something that validates their experience. It's not saying, can you please be quiet? We need to get onto this next thing. That's going to break rapport. Versus if you just say, understood, and then go into your next part. Sometimes you need to say it a few times. Just last week, I had a client, a really big storyteller, and I think it probably took 3 or 4 understoods before you finished, but I did that within 20, 30 seconds. So once I got the information and he was starting to go off on a tangent that wasn't helpful, it was a negative kind of spiral that he was going into, understood. And the moment he gave me the opening, I went and changed that pathway. It is a simple word, but can make a really big difference to pull out of those negative spirals. And that I love it because it's a full sentence. It's one word, but it's a full sentence. It's understood. Boom. All right. So that's a big one. Once I started introducing that, I started having much more time in my sessions, because when I was a new grad physio, my wife and I, we graduated Dalhousie, east coast of Canada in Nova Scotia, and we moved across with one of our friends to northern Alberta. So it was a place that was quite rural and isolated, and we were working at a hospital, the 3 of us for the entire hospital, the only physios in the town. And we would be working with the same kinds of clients. My, say a total knee joint replacement, middle-aged man. And my wife and I would get similar results, but I'll be the first to tell you, my wife is way smarter than I am. She did way better in school. And yet my clients would walk out of that on their last session just a little bit more pep in their step, just a little bit more confident. And I always thought it was the Degenhardt gift of the gap. My family are talkers, they're storytellers, they're musicians, and my dad can talk to anyone on the side of the road and then become best mates just like that. And I just thought it was the Degenhardt gift of the gap. Once I started studying hypnosis, I realized, oh, I was doing some of this stuff naturally, but now I'm doing it on purpose. Because once you know this word understood, it can stop a negative spiral. It's really empowering because you did it consciously, you did it on purpose. And that's very cool. But the next one. This one is really cool to increase the effectiveness of any of the treatments that you have. You may find. Now, some of these language patterns you would have already heard me say, even in this presentation. Right at the beginning, you may find that these language patterns help you with your clients. This is looking at creating the most potential for a situation. With my clients, I tell them I never limit your potential to heal. I'll never say you won't get back to this, or this is all you can do. Doctors and specialists that do that, I know, irk most of us physiotherapists. It's the idea of what is the maximum potential that we can provide in the space, and that you may find helps to kind of imagine that space of what that client can actually reach. So an example of this is at the end of a treatment. This is a great one after you've done something. So a manual therapy technique, or maybe it's massage, or whatever it is, exercise prescription. And then you simply say, you may find that after you get up from the plinth, you'll be able to move a bit more freely and feel more relaxed. And then the client gets up off of the plinth, and then their unconscious mind is thinking, okay, well, I may find that I move freely and I'm more relaxed. And oh yeah, it's true. I am feeling a bit more relaxed. They'll even use that language back to you. It's even more powerful. It's the language that they want. So that very first language pattern, what do you want? Oh, I just want to feel more relaxed. My body is just so tense. I want to feel more relaxed. So right at the end of the session, bring in that word that they used. You may find that when we finish this treatment, you feel so relaxed that you have a great sleep tonight. Isn't that a great suggestion to provide? And it can really make a big difference. So this is something that I incorporate pretty much every treatment now. I provide the language of what I want them to be able to achieve within the results of our session. And when I first started using this, the very first time I used You May Find, I was working in the home with a client who had diabetes and had very swollen legs, elderly lady, and wasn't really mobilizing very well, still independently, but one of those kind of furniture walkers. What I did was I got her into her beds, and we did active range of motion of the hip, just knee to chest and back, and the ankle. 3 reps, very slow because she needed to do them slow. They were very big and heavy. 3 wet reps with each leg. So that was a total of 12 repetitions of movement. Not very much, but I thought, hey, this is where I'm going to use this You May Find. So I told her, you may find when you stand up, you're going to feel more confident in your walking, and you're going to walk right over to your chair in the living room, feeling stronger in each step. And she got up, and limp decreased, stood up taller, and she walked like, you know what? I am feeling better. That's cool. That exercise really helped. Now, I don't know, 12 reps of a bit of general active range of motion just to get some fluid going. Yeah, that's going to make a bit of an improvement. But the change that I saw from limping and furniture walking to walking out of her room independently and tall, there's something more to that. Whether you call it placebo or bring in some of those other brain kind of changes, those types of things, this creates that potential. So you invite the person, what do you want them to feel? Just add, you may find at the beginning of it. It makes any treatments more effective. And you may find actually right now that when in a moment you stand up, sit back down, wiggle, move, that you're going to be refocused and be able to enjoy the rest of this presentation even more. So now I want you to stand up, just move around, wiggle, stand, shake it off, sit back down, boom. Notice maybe that little buzz to the head, that little laugh, whatever it is. Hey, that was me kind of edging in, giving that potential of just, I know if you stand up, sit down, or move a little bit during a presentation that we've already been sitting for half an hour, it's going to make you feel a bit better. So I might as well say it, and then that creates the potential for it to happen even more. So well done on that one. The next one. I'm liking the writing it down and revealing. I feel like it's a game show. This next one is a language pattern that, again, it creates this possibility, this potential, and a mental image that piques the curiosity of the individual. And it's imagine. Imagine. You can imagine using these language patterns in your practice immediately, can't you? Boom, just like that, throwing that word imagine into using these language patterns. It's not saying directly, okay, use these language patterns in your practice. Yeah, I want you to do that. But when I ask you and I invite you to create a mental image, yeah, can you imagine using these language patterns in your practice immediately? Boom, you might even think of right now a few clients that are already buzzing like, oh yeah, this one I could maybe do this one with, and this one I could do that, because the imagine, it piques the curiosity of the mind, it opens things up. It opens up those thriving loops to allow you to kind of tease out some of those details. It's one of the most powerful words to engage the mind. Imagine is a tool that I love to use in most sessions, especially if they're hypnotic, because it engages that curiosity. There's a hypnotist, a street hypnotist, and if you've never seen a street hypnotist, it's one of the most interesting and wild things, because you have to, within a very short amount of time, develop rapport, get a connection, and then create what's called hypnotic phenomenon of being able to get people's hands stuck together or feet stuck together, or to create yourself invisible or forget their name, all of these really interesting things, but really quickly. And there's a street hypnotist that goes by the name Lionism. And he's done lots of training over the years, and he does training himself too. And he talked about the way to engage the person the most to make any hypnotic treatments, or from my perspective, any treatment more effective, is to engage the person's curiosity, but not just their curiosity, their childlike curiosity. My 14-month-old twins, everything new in this world, even just going to a different spot in the park, it's just, whoa, this is amazing, this is big. And bringing in that curiosity in someone, getting them to imagine the results that they want to see. Imagine doing these exercises each day and feeling better, so that in a few weeks, you'll be able to pick up your kids. And it allows that mental picture for the first time. Oh yeah, I can see myself picking up my kids. And it can help to direct them into that place. So imagine, powerful, powerful word to be able to bring in. Next one. This is something that's actually used quite a bit in marketing. Something that you maybe watched an infomercial, and I always have a good laugh if I'm working in someone's home and an infomercial comes up for this massage thing or this kind of reduced pain or blah, blah, blah. And they always start with, how would you like to feel better quickly and easily? And do this in the comfort of your own home. This is a yes set. A yes set is a process to get someone to agree at an unconscious level, so that then when the infomercial says, by now, you've just said yes, yes, yes. And then they say, by now, by calling this number, your brain says, oh, yes. And you call that number. This is something that is a really important part of hypnosis. And any physiotherapy practice, actually, any treatment, you're going to be getting yes sets naturally. You're doing this stuff already. The idea of when the client first comes in and you say their name and, hi, Joe, have a seat. And then they say, okay, yeah, I'll have a seat. And then that's a nice day outside, isn't it? Oh, yeah. And you've been getting a bit of sunshine? Yeah, I have. And you're ready to make some change in your healing and be able to improve how you feel today? Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, I'm ready to do that. So you can use these types of things to get that internal agreement. And this is another one that's great written as well. So some of the marketing that I do, I'll be using yes sets. And I didn't actually use it for this one. And I had a lot of you come and attend. So that's a little bit of a side on that one. But using these yes questions, these yes sets, can set you up for success. You can see on the opposite, and there is a no set that can sometimes be used. But if you got someone to say no to a whole bunch of things, while you're still getting them to agree to no, if, oh yeah, you're really, this is that really negative challenged patient who's just down, doesn't want to do anything, and you don't really want to be here, do you? No. And you're probably not going to do the exercises that I provide. No. And you just kind of ask a few. And well, we're here right now, so we might as well take the most of the time, right? Like, yeah. And at the end, that right, or it's called a take question. Isn't it, aren't you, wasn't it, won't it? Those types of things can get that agreement. So yeah, well, we might as well make that the most out of the time, right? Yeah. All right, are you happy to do some things today that might make you feel better? Okay. So you can kind of use these agreements, internal agreements, to then set up what you want to in the future. Now, one of the things that I haven't addressed is, how are you going to remember all of these things? These are principles. And at the end, I'm going to say this again, pick one thing, probably the word try, and just do that for a week. Then the next week, add another one. I didn't learn all of these at once. These are actually my favorite ones that I've used over the years, the top 10. But there's lots that I've used a bit and some that I don't at all. But the idea is that you just play with it. Have a client come in and see about doing it on purpose, creating that conscious connection of saying the yes set, and see if you can get an agreement. If you do, give yourself a little pat on the back and know, okay, I just did it. So you can just simply imagine that it's easy to learn all of these, or maybe pretend that it's easy to integrate these into your life, and then pretend you're not pretending anymore. There's another little language pattern that I love. So that's the yes net, the yes sets. All right. The next one is something to finish a session with the client. This is something that can help to get you to understand what they've learned and what they're going to take away from that session and apply in the following days or weeks between your next session. It's what's next. This question, again, it puts it back onto that individual, that client-centered care. And I use that term, taking complete ownership of that healing process. Yeah, you're the physio and you're providing the expertise and the advice, but they have to do it. So at the end of the session, you're getting ready, you're kind of maybe tidying some things up, and then you can say, okay, what's next? And most of the time you're going to get a confused look. What do you mean, what's next? Well, what's next? What's next over the next day or two, or till I see you next? Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to do more of those back extensions. I'm going to do them 3 times a day. and that's going to hopefully make me feel better so I can pick up my kid. Oh, cool. All right, that's great. So it's a way for you to understand, hey, how much did they get through? If they say, oh, well, I don't know, just gonna go to work, see how it goes. Okay, well, it's giving you a little bit of an indication on what's happening in that space. So what's next is a great one to encourage that the client to move forward into that conversation and to be a part of it, to own what's next for them. It's one that I use, and when I do, I bring it into every session. So I don't always use it, but when I do, I use it every time, that kind of a thing, that if I introduce it and if it works, if they give me that feedback of, oh, I'm going to do the reps 3 times a day and blah, 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 then the next session, I'll say it again. All right, so what's next? And they'll start to know, oh, okay, this is my time where I give you the information back. And they're not gonna, you don't say that, oh, I want you to tell me everything that you've learned today. That works too, but what's next is a little bit more vague and allows them to create the response from themselves. And this number 10 language pattern is one that's really important when it comes to pain. I've experienced pain in a variety of ways, physical, emotional, and I know most of you have as well over the years. And this is a question that's really important to not bring your understanding, your language of pain into that session to cloud that person's language, to interfere with their understanding of their experience. The word is notice. Instead of saying, how's your pain today? I definitely said it when I was a new grad physio because they wanted to talk about their pain. They wanted to have less of it. So I'd ask, how's your pain today? That's setting them up for recognizing, okay, I have to tune in. Where's my pain? How much do I feel it? Okay, well, I guess I got a little bit of pain today. Yeah, it's a bit irritating. It's a bit of an ache. If you simply ask, so what do you notice right now? This is something I use at the beginning of my sessions, especially the follow-up sessions or the beginning of a functional assessment. Okay, just notice how you're feeling right now. Again, sometimes you get some confused looks, but you just tune into your body. What do you notice? Okay, well, I'm feeling blah, blah, blah. Then you get their language associated with their experience without you interfering with it. This is something that is called clean language, and it's a whole area that you can kind of study and develop. The idea that you do not want to imprint into their experience. If I tell them, where do you feel your pain today? Or how much is your pain from 0 to 10? And they were actually walking in and they felt pretty good. Well, now they have to create pain. Their mind says, oh, well, this physio, this person that's important is asking me a question about pain. I might as well tune in. Yeah, I do feel some right now. Whereas when you just change it, it's just, what do you notice right now? Then you might get the language of, oh, I feel a bit of tension through my back right today. It just feels really tight. Well, if you want to use a visual analog scale, then you use that word. Okay, from 0 being no tension at all, 10 being the worst that you've experienced. That's also another way that you can use that VAS, worst that you've experienced, not the worst pain ever, no, worst that you've experienced. How much, what number is that tension right now? Okay, it's probably about a 5. So this is how you can use those tools that you already do on a regular basis without interfering and using what's called painted words. Pain is a painted word. No matter who you are, if I just say the word pain, there's going to be memories flicking to painful experiences that you've had in the past. And even right now, you might have an image of an injury or grief or something that just, oh yeah, okay, that's pain. It's painted. It's a word that has an emotional context. And part of what we do as physiotherapists is help to dehypnotize that word, to kind of de-pain, to take away the emotional context to that pain, or to that word, sorry. If I asked each and every one of you right now, what is pain? First thing that comes to mind, what it is, how it works, whatever that first thing that comes to mind, that is going to be, for the most part, a very structural medical type of explanation of what pain is. Something like the International Association of the Study of Pain, the unpleasant sensory and emotional experience, having both of those, that has the sensory and emotional experience to actual or potential tissue damage. Okay, that's a very medical definition of what pain is. And as a physio, you'd probably give me something about that, or neuroscience, or this or that. But if I ask, what is pain to one of my clients, which is something I do every single one of my clients, I need to understand how that word affects them. They'll use things like, oh, it's frustrating, it holds me back. I can't stand it. They'll use more of the emotional side rather than the sensory side of things. So notice is a really powerful word to tune into their experience and to not paint it with whatever our understanding of the world is. We all have our reality tunnels, and these reality tunnels can blind us to see the other parts of our existence, because we are all unique, and that makes every experience of pain unique as well. No matter how good our technology gets, I always tell every one of my clients, I'll never be able to experience and have your experience of pain, and you'll never be able to experience mine. And because of that, we need to treat it uniquely. And the way to do that best is just to not use our language on them. So notice, it's a really powerful tool. So that's 10 language patterns. But I have one bonus language pattern for you that I didn't actually learn when I was studying hypnosis initially, but one that I learned from grief. And this language pattern is asking the question, how are you coping? Instead of how are you doing, or are you okay? Now, just want to give a little bit of a trigger warning. I'm going to tell a story of infant loss. And I know statistically 1 in 4 pregnancies end in loss. So if I know there's going to be quite a few of you in here that have had personal experiences, if you want to just get up, go to the toilet, have a stretch just for 5 minutes, and come back, I'll finish that story by then, and then we'll get into the final section of this. But I think it's important because this is a language pattern that I've experienced, and it gives a different perspective. So in Fiona's lovely intro, she mentioned my 3 sons, Oliver, Felix, and Leo. Well, Oliver, 3 years ago, my wife was pregnant with our first child, and everything was going really well. We were hypnobirthing and went through a process that she felt calm, she felt relaxed, she felt empowered. It had me being the hypnotist during those sessions as that partner, and during labor and delivery to have something that I can actually do. And she did amazing. My wife got her black belt in Heidong Gumdo, this Korean sword martial art, when she was pregnant. And before we were even telling, I think it was around that 3-month mark. So she just went in there and did it. The instructor, our master, knew, but she did that. We went to South Korea and we competed from Olympia. And she did that all pregnant, and it was a great pregnancy. Everything went really well. On December 7th, back in 2019, it was a Saturday morning. We train Heidong in the mornings. So I went, did some training outdoors with my club, and I get the call 5 minutes before training finishes. All right, things are happening. So we go to the hospital, and yeah, it's dilated, everything's ready, it's going good. And over the course of the morning and the afternoon, progressively increasing in the appropriate ways. And at 6:41, my son Oliver was born, let out a big cry. And then within a few minutes, we everybody kind of recognized there was something not quite right. He wasn't kind of as mobile, wasn't crying anymore, so went into ICU, and over the course of the next few hours, his health continued to worsen, and in the early hours of the next morning, he died. And that just completely threw us, because everything was going right. There's no reasons, and even to date, there's no reasons for his decline. And in the days, the months, even the year after, we would see people socially, and I used to be a very outgoing personality. This kind of stuff that I'm doing right now, this was my bread and butter before, but this is the biggest presentation I've done since Oliver, because it completely rocked every aspect of myself. I would see people in public, maybe at Pack and Save, or maybe it was in the clinic, or this or that I knew, and they would know my story, and they would ask, "Are you okay? How are you doing?" And I was thinking, of course I'm not okay. I'm the worst that I've ever been in my life. I'm having an existential crisis, knowing who I am. Am I a father without a son? Am I someone who used to be optimistic and now not? I was known for using the phrase loving life so much in my teenage and my early 20s that I got it tattooed on my body, on my calf. I have a tattoo that says Amari Vitam. It's Latin to love life. And then for months afterwards, the little bits of happiness, just a tiny bit, it was just moments that the pain I felt was immense. But what would I say when I was asked that question? Are you okay? How are you doing? I would say, I'm okay, I'm fine. Because that's what's socially normal in that situation. I didn't have time to tell them all of those things and to really express how I felt. And it would then immediately, when I left that situation, I'll go and cry, because I just couldn't handle that. It was so triggering to be asked, "Are you okay?" Of course I'm not. And I tell this story for two reasons. One is to actually promote discussion about infant loss. I know this isn't necessarily the setting for it, but because of, especially in the DHBs and within the physio practice, there are a lot of women who have experienced this, but also a lot of dads. And as a dad who has lost a son, it is one of the most isolating things. And the pain that I felt from it was nothing. The mealar hemostasis in my hand and the headaches and fatigue I got from hemochromes, none of that stuff was even close to the pain I experienced from grief. And I just want to start talking about it, because one of the interesting things from having this experience is that there were so many people I knew that had hid it from their worlds, that have had miscarriages or things that happened that they just didn't even share with anybody. And I don't like that, because when you hold pain in, when you resist pain, it comes out in different ways that aren't very helpful. And just having that conversation, having that outlet can be really important. So that's the first reason why I want to bring this up today. So when you talk to your colleagues and your friends and your family about this presentation, yeah, get them to eliminate the word try, but talk about infant loss. Hey, he was saying 1 in 4 pregnancies result in loss. Did you know that? Because you may be surprised at the friends, the colleagues that you have that have gone through something that can be completely changing to their core of who they are and not ever talk about it. And that's one of the things that I, as a father to a son who is no longer on this earth, I don't want him to be forgotten. I want people to ask me about Oliver. I want people to remember his birthday and to talk about his birthing story. That's all we have in his pregnancy, and how he was badass and had gone to Korea and got a black belt and all that stuff. And hypnobirthing, my wife is now actually a hypnobirthing instructor. She's doing courses now in Whakatane because of how positive her experience was with Oliver and with our twins. So I want to talk about him, and I want to provide that opportunity for other people as well. This is about language patterns, but language in general, just being able to speak, having a voice can make a really big difference. So that's the first reason why I shared my story with you. But the other is to start using the phrase, how are you coping? It allows for the truth to come out. Because are you okay? And how are you doing? It's like giving a handshake, especially in this time and age, this day and age with COVID. If you go to give your hand to shake one of your clients, maybe it's by accident, or maybe you do it on purpose still, but that client may be fearful of COVID and not want to shake a hand, but what will they do? They will shake your hands. And they may not like it, they may feel bad about it, but that's what that question, are you okay, or how are you doing, does to a person. And just a few weeks ago, I kind of thought to include this into the language patterns because of my cat, Clyde. So I said, Fiona had said I have 2 cats and a dog that came from Canada, Bonnie and Clyde. I adopted them 13 years ago, just fresh out of uni. And Clyde's at the beginning of January, over the course of a few weeks, declined significantly, wasn't eating, and had kidney failure, and we had to euthanize him 2 weeks ago. And man, grief comes back. Those pathways came back in a really big way. And I was checking into my wife often. She was the stronger kind of in that space because we still need to take care of the kids. And this is one of the biggest constants that I've had in my life in a while. And I would ask her, how are you coping? And that's what I used every time. How are you coping today? How are you coping? And we were going for a walk on the beach. And she asked me, where did that come from? How are you coping? And I couldn't remember. I knew that it came from my experience with Oliver, and how I learned it at some point in the months returning kind of into the workforce. I have no clue where it came from. I have no source for that, because that's what pain does. It clouds your ability to learn. And at least I still got that component. How are you coping? Because that's all I use with my clients now. I ask them, especially if they're looking that they're a little bit low or down, how are you coping today? That's how I start most of my conversations with any of my clients these days, is just, how are you coping? Because it allows for that opportunity for truth to come out. And even today I had to, it was a roller coaster of a day, especially with this being one of the biggest presentations I've done. I started off with finding out one of my students was in the paper, and he already had the photos, and it was amazing. If you saw the beacon today in Whakatane, you'd see him there. So I was really excited. And then the vet called and said, Clyde's back from being cremated. And I was just, whew. And we're looking for a rental. And it was one that didn't allow pets. And it was just like this big, heavy experience. And I go to New World to go pick up the beacon so I can have a copy of it. And the teller, what do you think she asked me? Oh, how are you doing today? And man, even though I understand the language, it still gets to me. I was like, oh, what do you think I said? I'm doing fine. Because that's not a question that you can answer truthfully. But how are you coping? It's called a pattern interrupt. It allows that person, that individual, to think, he's just asking me, how am I coping? Well, actually, no, I'm coping good today. Or no, actually, I'm not doing so well. So please use that the next time that you go into a client situation. How are you coping? Now, grief, it comes from love, doesn't it? And love is actually what I want you to experience now. I want you to learn. I want you to take things away from this. But now I just want you to feel some love. So I want you to think. I want you to imagine the people that you love the most. See their faces. Hear their laugh. Bring in that love. Make it every breath kind of soaking it in. And you might even notice something in your body. And as you just picture those people that you love the most. Do that fully right now, because why not? It's just an opportunity that you may be surprised at how much better you feel. And what I want to do right now is provide a hypnotic receptivity test that we're going to bring a little bit of love into it. And this is something that I invite you to follow along. If you don't want to, that's fine too. Just watch. And for this, I want you to just bring in that childhood curiosity, to just simply be curious about this process and hold on to that love that you feel and see what happens. All right, you ready? Now for this, so I want you to get yourself comfortable with your feet planted on the ground, and then link your hands together in front. I want you to place your palms together, link your fingers. By the way, if you have any shoulders through down to hand-arm concerns or issues, do it at a rate and ability that is appropriate to you to keep safe. And yet you can also just take a step back. But if you're happy and healthy, I want you to squeeze and hold those hands together. I want you to lock out your elbows, and I want you to start focusing on one spot on your hands. And as you do that, squeeze those hands together even more. Lock the hands out, squeeze it together, make it stiff, make it locked out in that space, and then close your eyes and continue to focus on that feeling. Continue to lock that out, because now I want you to feel that love again. Remember to see those images of those people that you love and bring in their voices, their laughter, bring all of that love and put it through your arms down into your hands, because that love, make it so that your hands get so stuck and locked together, that love just locks it together. Love is the thing that makes anything inseparable. And as you focus on that love, in a moment, you're going to try to pull your hands apart, and you'll find that you won't be able to. You'll try to, but you'll find that it gets more stuck and locked. So as you squeeze that last little bit, like it's glue or vice grips going together, and then try to pull it apart, and just notice it's just a little bit strange. And if you try to pull it apart, I know you're strong, and then just take a deep breath in and out. And as you breathe out, you relax, release your arms, open your eyes, come back to the here and now. Whew. All right, tune into your body. What do you notice? What was that experience like? So if you want to, you can type a little message in the chat about what that was. Because there's 100 of you in this room, there's going to be a wide variety of experiences. And I can't calibrate your experience, so I just use the principles of these techniques. One in particular from Freddie Jacqueline, which is create an emotion, make a suggestion. I love it. It's simple. That's what hypnosis is. Create an emotion, make a suggestion. Love is one of the most powerful tools that we have. And the book by Bruce Lipton, The Biology of The Biology of Belief. It's a great book, great audio book as well. He talks about how, from a genetics perspective, he was one of the assistant researchers on stem cell research back in the 80s when it was just starting. And the idea of putting a cell in one environment and it creates a bone, another environment creates a muscle, well, that was something really new in that genome project and all of that stuff. He talks about how cells cannot be in a state of protection and a state of growth. A cell cannot be half and half. You need to be either in a state of growth or a state of protection. And fear, anxiety, stress, that's what creates that protective response. But love opens up. Love allows you to grow, to create the opportunities for change. So when we bring in love, that's why the whole time I brought in that example of being able to pick up your kids, because that love can be such a powerful way to guide and direct someone. This experience, whether it felt like, now I want you to do it again, put your hands together, take them apart. Notice how easy that was. Notice how it was a little bit different when I guided you through a process step by step. Regardless of if your hands were really stuck and locked together, or if it just kind of felt sticky and you couldn't get them apart. You're a great hypnotic subject. It's cool information to have. So what I'd like to do now, if you found that experience was interesting, or if you sat back and you thought, oh, actually, maybe I'll take part in this next one, I want to go through a process that can help to reduce some pain or stress or anxiety, anything that you want to change, and something that you want to promote a bit of healing with right now. After I go through this, we'll open it up to have some video or the chat box to kind of talk about the experience. And then we'll go through a question and answer period as well. So for this, whether you let's tune in. And I want for any volunteers right now who wants to go through a different hypnotic process, one that I use with my clients on a regular basis that can help to reduce or eliminate pain. I'm going to tell a story while I ask you to do something if you'd like to volunteer for this. I want you to, if you want to volunteer, I want you to tune into your body. If it's a pain or stress or anxiety or whatever it is, I want you to notice it, whatever language comes to mind. And from 0 to 10, whatever that experience is for you, 10 being the worst you've experienced, 0 is nothing. I want you to pick a number for it. Okay, you know how to do that. But here's a little twist, a tweak on that tool. We're going to aim for 0. I always aim for complete healing, the top of the mountain. But I want you to choose a number between 0 and the number that you chose initially. That would allow you to improve how you felt tonight, to have a better sleep, to be able to have a cool experience and just be curious. So if you're volunteering, you'll now have a number of what your experience is, maybe a bit of language around what that is, and what number you'd like to get to improve how you feel, to show that you did something significant. And if you'd like to volunteer, what I'd like you to do now is in the chat box, just give a few words of what you're experiencing, what you are right now, and that number that you want to achieve, if not all the way down to 0. Okay. As you're doing that, I'm going to show the rest of you, and you as well, how you can download the handout. So I'm just going to open this up here, just one moment, and I'm going to share my screen. So this is 10 language patterns for client success. I have each pattern and a little bit of a description of each one. Now for this, it's a free handout, and I'm going to type in the box here. It's www.rethinkpainworkshop.com/HPPT. Now it comes up with my course page that I'm putting up. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more, but if you click on that, and I will put that in the chat, just one second here, chat, and boom, there we go. So click on that link, and it'll come up with this page here. And if it doesn't come up with a pop-up that says put in your just your name and email address, you don't have to opt into anything. It's just a way that I can kind of keep track of how many downloads there are. You just scroll down, yes, I want my language patterns handouts, and it says no opt-in, name and email. You may choose, if you want to opt into my mailing list, and if you do, I'll make sure anybody in this presentation, you get the recording, also a couple of the freebies, a couple other things that can help, a couple bonuses like how to explain pain, how I bring in the triune model and neuroscience model, and how to educate. I'll bring that in, and a couple other little presentations. So you can go through, do that, download the handout at any time. And just going to stop the share here now. Okay. And let's go. All right, so now looking at the messages here, there's a few of you that are, oh, can't see the link. Let's put that one. So it's in, let's type it and put it there one more time. www.rethinkpainworkshop.com/HPPT, Hypnotic Pain Principles and Techniques. And I'll also, so I can put it in. Oh, there we go. Put it also in there too. Okay. So for the volunteers, we have, now this is something that I am going to open up the participants, and if possible, I'd like to have your video up. You don't have to, but I'll invite you if you want to. You can have your video so that I can kind of communicate and talk with you a little bit easier. It's a bit easier for me to work with someone if I can see them. So I'm just going to do that to allow a few of you that, so Liz and Christina, Kelly. Okay, so the three of you can now, if you would like to, you can go to the bottom and you can unmute or start your video, I believe. You don't need to, but I just wanted to have your names up there as well and provide that opportunity to discuss things afterwards too. All right, so, oh, there we go. One more here. Sarah, you as well. Okay. Right. So Sarah, Kelly, Christina, you can all hear me, and now you can communicate if you need to. For this, it's pretty easy. You can just sit back and relax, follow through this process. You can be curious about how this works. For this, in a moment, I'm going to take 3 deep breaths, and I'm going to invite you to take those same big diaphragmatic breaths with me. On the first breath, I want you to relax the muscles around your eyelids. Relax them so much that they'll just kind of want to close. On the second deep breath, I want you to relax them even more, that they'll just start to close, allow that to happen. And on the third breath, you'll relax them so much that they'll just close and that they'll want to stay closed. You can want it to happen, expect it to happen, and watch it happen. You ready? Okay. Take that first deep breath in now and out. Just relax those tiny muscles around the eyes. Second breath and out. Those eyelids can just close. They feel more relaxed. And that final breath, with that breath out, just close them completely and allow for those eyes to just stay closed. Because you can choose to open your eyes at any time, but I want you to make the choice to keep them closed right now. And as you do, your unconscious mind can imagine that place that's even deeper, more comfortable and relaxed than you already are right now. And as you just sink into that chair a little bit more, or continue to take those big, healthy, relaxing breaths, you'll simply be in a space and time where change is possible. And you may notice that as you just continue to relax those eyes, that relaxation can go from the top of your head down to your toes. And in this space and time where you can follow through the instructions easily and comfortably, that I want you to begin to notice, just bring an awareness to your body. Notice the sensation of your feet on the ground and your legs on the chair. And as you do that, I want you to imagine that you're just floating up out of that chair. Imagine what it would feel like you're in water or going into outer space as you just float through the ceiling, just float up through the sky, up through the clouds, into space. Just imagine what that would feel like. Just pretend that you're floating up, and then pretend you're not pretending anymore. Because as you just notice how that would feel, tune into your body as you go up into that space, being protected like an astronaut with a suit. Maybe you got a color of protection around you. And as you do that and you continue to move out into space, my voice follows with you, and you look over your shoulder and you see that pale blue dot of the earth. And that change of perspective can help you to change your perspective on your experience right now. And as you do that, I want you to notice a target right in the center between you and earth. In the center of that target, I want you to put in any of that sticky pain, that tension, that tightness, any of that emotional pain that you feel from your experience. And as you put all of that right into the center of that target, in a moment, I'm going to make a sound, phew, and when I do, you're going to shoot right through that target. And when you do, you'll have to be brave, because just for a moment, you'll experience that sensation again, that emotion again, just for a millisecond before you drift off into a place where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you, where you have that potential to be free of that experience. So as you take another deep breath in and out, zoof, right through that target, right into that space where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you, floating in that space and time where you bring in that love of the people in your life. Notice their faces again, and notice how much bigger and brighter and powerful this is now that you've taken that time and space into it even more. And as you bring in that love and merge it with every part of your body, every cell, I want your unconscious mind to make all of the changes necessary so that by the end of this technique, you'll simply feel better, more relaxed, more of what you want, freedom from that experience that you had before. So go ahead, make those changes. And as you do, you'll float back down to earth, back through the clouds, the sky, back through the ceiling, and just on the other side of your room so that you can see yourself. Notice in that chair how you can't feel or notice that same way as it was before. Something's changed. And continue to make all of those changes at a molecular, cellular level so that as you float back, reemerge from that experience, at some point your eyes will open, you'll come back to the here now, feeling more relaxed, better, easier to be able to do more of what you want to and have a great sleep tonight. So as your mind and body completes all of those changes, go ahead, do that fully, thoroughly, taking as much or as little time as you need. And once you come back to the present moment and your eyes open, see me on the screen, you can unmute your microphone, let me know that you're back here in this space. And we're gonna have a little chat to notice how much better you feel. So go ahead, take that time. And whenever you're ready, come on all the way back. That's right. There we go. So some of the mics are unmuting. So let's start with Sarah. Tune into your body. On that scale from 0 to 10, what would you put your current experience right now?
Probably at a 1.
Probably at a 1?
Yep.
I'm just looking through. So it started at a 2, is that right?
Yep.
Nice. All right. So you wanted to get to a 0. You got it down to a 1. And more importantly, so you made a change, but what was the most important part of that experience? What was the part that connected with you the most?
Just the floating, the letting go, and feeling kind of light and detached, and that feeling of coming back and just seeing myself from a different perspective.
Nice. Thank you for that. I love, there's so many components in that that we could probably have an entire conversation about. Disassociation is a component of a lot of hypnotic techniques. The owner of Hypnosis New Zealand, it's the professional body that I'm part of for hypnosis. We had a conversation one time about how hypnosis, most of the techniques out there, is take whatever sensation, emotion, move it outside of your body, get that disassociation, make a change, and then come back. And it's really cool to hear your experience with that. So thank you very much, Sarah. Is there anything else that you wanted to share about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, just feeling lighter, like I almost feel my eyes still just feel really heavy, and like I'm readjusting to a new normal.
Readjusting to a new normal. Man, you just know how use all the right language right now. That's wicked. Because that's what we're looking for. These kinds of things, these changes, they can be big, they can be quick, and they can be long-term. And I'm going to share another story after I talk to each one of you. So thank you very much, Sarah, for providing a little bit of information about your experience. I'm just going to put your mic on mute again, and we're going to move over to Kelly. So Kelly, we started with the shoulder, starting at a 6, wanting to get to a 2, tune into your body. What do you notice now?
I think it's gone more down to about a 4.
4, okay. So a little bit of a shift, not quite where we wanted that experience to go to, but I'll ask you that same question about what was the most kind of important part of that experience? What connected with you the most?
Again, it was the floating and that disassociation. So I think that if I was to repeat that again, that feeling, imagery later on, it would build in its effectiveness.
Nice. Yeah, and I would agree with that. Hypnosis is a skill, and it's a skill that you can learn. That's where with self-hypnosis, at the end of this, I'm actually going to provide all 4 of you one last kind of opportunity to go into that space and to have a self-hypnosis skill to improve how you feel. So that's something that also recognizes the time. You wanted more time in that space, and you wanted to kind of delve into that. Where with the limitation of having 4 people on a screen and a little bit of minimal knowledge, I think you did really well to actually get a bit of that disassociation, that floating and in that space, and the desire, that curiosity to go back into it. Man, now you know you're a great hypnotic subject, and you have a whole new area to kind of explore. So that's really cool. Is there anything else about your experience that you wanted to share?
No, I think Sarah said, a lot of the same sort of sensations and thoughts that I was having. So yeah, I think it's quite a common pathway. Sorry, I've just been interrupted. So
good. Thank you very much for that, Kelly. All right, I'm just going to mute your mic, and I'm just going to turn off my fan so I can hear a little bit easier, and we'll move over to Christina. So Christina, now I just want to just acknowledge your experience, and I'm sorry that for your loss. And this is something that I'm curious to find out what your experience was like, but it's also something that I'll talk a little bit more about grief and hypnosis afterwards, but tell me a little bit more about your experience.
Yeah, I definitely feel a lot lighter afterwards, and for me the biggest thing that stuck out was being able to put a target through it. I think sort of not the idea of pushing aside that grief, but being able to just address it head on and find a way of allowing it to not consume you so much by sort of being out there and floating, and sort of taking that away and focusing on something different.
Yeah, I think that's really really important. And what about that number? Like you started at a 6, what with that lighter feeling, how has that number changed?
down to a 2, actually less than what I was expecting.
Yeah, and that's really, really cool. Well done. And I think what you said about that having something, a target, grief is something that we all experience in different ways. There's no right or wrong for how to experience grief. And yet we don't necessarily have the opportunities and resources to do something about it. It's the, oh, well, you got what we have in pop culture, which is cry, and well, that's about it. I know for grief, before it happened to me, I had no understanding of what to do. And by simply acknowledging that, okay, it is an emotion, and providing an opportunity to release it, whether it's through a cry or whether it's through putting it in a target. But I want to just reflect on grief as an experience of pain. I don't, even though I have much more experience with it than most people, most hypno physios, that kind of a thing, I tends to avoid doing processes and techniques with someone, and more so guiding them through doing things for themselves. So for your experience, I would more so want to teach you just how to get into a hypnotic space, so that you have the freedom to, whether it's putting it in a target or just to be in that space. I think it's one of the things with grief, it's being okay with just experiencing it. Grief, more so than I think the sensation of pain in the body, it's something that we tend to put off to the side. We put it in the cupboard in our mind, we lock it away, and that can just providing an opening, and hey, now you were able to kind of do something with it. I think that's really powerful. So thank you for that, Christina. Is there anything else that you want to share about your experience?
It was really hard to come back. I was quite happy out there.
That's great. So just like Sarah, it's that wanting to spend more time. And I meant to look at the start and the finish. I'm not sure if anybody actually timed how long that technique was, but that's also an indication. I want Sarah, Kelly, Christina, and Liz, I want you to think of how many minutes that technique felt like it was to you. Okay, so Christina, for you, so hopefully Sarah, Kelly, Liz, Christina all got that number in your head. Okay, and then type it on the chat. But Christina, how long did you feel like that was?
Maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
I know it wasn't, but it definitely felt like you're out there for a bit.
Yeah, so 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, and this is where I've had people say 5 or 10 minutes, and I've had a 45-minute session with them. And the complete opposite sometimes is true too. Feels like 45 minutes, but it was actually only 5. It's an interesting hypnotic, it's called part of that hypnotic phenomenon is that time distortion. And that happens in flow states when you want to be in there, you want to spend more time there. So 46 minutes, cool, yeah. And is there anything else that you wanted to share, Christina? I'm not sure if I asked that already, but
already had. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. And then we'll head over to Liz. So Liz was the I'm just looking up. So I've just invited you to unmute your one. You don't have to if you don't want to communicate or talk. That's fine too. Maybe just give a little message on the chat. If you'd like to just stay anonymous, that's totally fine too. Or if you're having technical difficulties, then we can manage that. But it could be even, I can't find lists. Yeah, the Alna 4 out of 10, and you want it to go at least down to 2. So Liz, are you there? All right. I'll give you a few moments to work on that, either a response in the chat or to unmute. And we'll get to the questions. Michelle, I see a question there, and I did see a couple other questions coming up. I want to just check and see with finishing things off. I have two more little things, and then I'll, oh, right. All right, actually, no, I promised Christina, Kelly, Sarah. Whew, end of a big day. All right, we're coming to the end of this one. I said that I would give you an experience to go back into that space and to have a tool for self-hypnosis. And I want to do this so that everybody else can have an understanding of how to use that tool on your own. So this time, you're going to take those same 3 deep breaths, but you're going to go right into that space. And probably even the first breath, your eyes are going to close and you're going to start going into that, drifting into that space where nothing disturbs you, nothing bothers you, where you just feel that floating feeling, feel that lighter. So by the 3rd breath, you'll just be there. All right, ready? Taking that first breath in and out. Closing your eyes, going right into that space fully and completely. 2nd breath in and out, twice as deep, twice as relaxed, floating, easy in that space as you take that final deep breath and out. And as you float in that space, feel that effortless movements, clearing your minds and your body. I want you to choose one word that represents how you feel in this space. One word that anchors in this experience so that any time that you want to come back to it, all you'll need to do is take a deep breath in and out and say that word gently in your mind. And when you do that, you can return back to this state. But it doesn't have to be just for an extended amount of time, 10 or 20 minutes, to really dive into it and to just notice how you feel. You can simply do it when your eyes are open, doing your dishes, or having a conversation that you want to bring in that present moment of calm and that peace. So as you find that word that represents how you feel, in a moment, you're going to take 3 more deep breaths. And by that 3rd breath is going to be so anchored into your mind that anytime that you use that breath in and out and say that word gently, softly, easily, and comfortably in your mind, you'll be able to come back easily to this whenever you want. First breath in and out, saying that word gently in your mind. 2nd breath in and out. That's right. And the last breath, to fully breathe in that experience, make it bigger, brighter. As you breathe out, go even deeper. That's right. And on the count of 5, I'll count back into this space where your eyes will open and you'll be able to easily go back into that. And I invite you to go back into that space before you fall asleep. Use this tool, that breath and that word, to fall asleep, and you will have the best sleep that you've had in ages. Wake up feeling more refreshed, knowing that you have a tool that you can affect your mind and body and make changes in whatever way that you want. 1, coming to the surface 3 times more alert, though, this time getting things moving, wiggling the fingers and toes like you just had cold water splashed in your face, had an hour massage, feeling great. 4, 5, wide awake now. Cool, shake it off, move it, wicked. That was your my gift to you to be able to use as much as you want. And please reach out to me as well and see how you go over the next few weeks using that. All right, nearing the finish line here, I wanted to provide just a quick demonstration of something from, I talked about Mike Mindell Hypnosis. That's who I initially trained from with our online academy. It's a great international community, amazing instructors, and they have hypnotic language cards. Each one of these cards has a different language pattern. I'm pretty sure most of the ones that I use today are on this. And so for an example, you have what happens when, and it gives you a little description of the technique and how to use it. And the way that you can practice, during the Yes Set conversation, I said about how do you learn this stuff? Well, you pick something and you do it till you integrate it. You're creating language pattern generators in your mind, and you just start to speak hypnotically. I don't need to try to do this anymore. It just happens. And I wanted to bring back try. The only time that I've ever used try is when I want someone to fail. Try to pull your hands apart and you'll notice that you won't be able to. Those are the times that you can bring in hypnotic phenomenon, which are really cool part of being Hypno Physio. So how do you use these things to train? Well, sometimes I just kind of take a few of them randomly. We'll take 3 of them here. And I wonder, when you use these language patterns, how easy it'll be to be able to integrate them into your day, because there's no need to really put too much effort. Just by coming here tonight, you've learned these and you now have a new way to speak. So what's next? And what I did, I wonder when, there's no need to, what's next? And that's how you can start to develop this language pattern center in your mind so that you can just speak like this. You speak hypnotically and the change starts to happen a lot more from there. Before we get into the question and answer, I want to just give my little pitch. So this was something I asked Fiona about when putting this presentation on. This is something that I'm really passionate about. So I'm going to invite Damien Taylor. So if you have questions now, type them in the Q&A or in the chat, and I'm going to address each of them individually. So I'm just going to, how do I add, there we go, attendees, Damien, Damien, I do not see your name. So Damien Taylor's my Hypno Physio colleague, might have gotten pulled away from his family, but if you're in on a different name, Damien, just put it in the message there and we can introduce you into it. But I'm going to share, the course that we're putting on in March 12th and 13th are the live components. We also have a one-day online, because we wanted to get the theory online. So we have videos. We just we're doing the recordings right now. They're really awesome. And then the 2 days at the Rotorua Hospital. So I've been collaborating with Carol Turner. She's one of the physio professional leads at Rotorua Hospital. And we're putting on hypnotic pain principles and techniques. It's something that I've been working towards for years. And there's a lot more information on the webpage that I will put again here. That's the same place where you can get your free handout for the language patterns. There's a great video about a bit more into my story and how I got into hypnosis on there, and more information about how it works. We have a early bird cost. Oh man, the language is starting to shut down, I'm telling you. Next Monday, the 31st, is the last of our early bird. So it's $100 off. And for our premium first course rate, the goal is to have more of these courses. And so if you're watching this as a recording and maybe it's already gone by, well, just tune in, check in on the website, because we want to keep doing with this. With COVID, there's only a max of 14 people for this first course. So that means that already there's a couple registrations. So if you want to get in, send me a message, email, register in if you want. So it's something I'm really excited about. And that technique that I went through, 3 breaths, it's called the Catalyst Induction. We'll be covering that at the course. And then one of the techniques is the Freddie Jacquin Arrow technique. He's a UK hypnotist, trains all around the world. And that's one of the tools that we'll be teaching, amongst a bunch of other techniques, tools, a bunch of other principles, language patterns spattered all throughout. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super pumped for it and excited to see hopefully some of you there. So that's my presentation, finishing with my little pitch. So thank you for providing the opportunity to talk about that. And now to get into some of the questions. Before that, I'm just going to turn on my light if I can. Let me just see here. Got this one.
Thank you, Daniel, for that presentation. It's great to see the comments that someone says they've got something to try with their patient at 7:30 in the morning. So you definitely delivered on new tools in the toolbox. So thank you very much for this.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I've written down the questions, so we don't need to scroll through them.
Oh, perfect.
Sarah's asked, do you look at patients' language preference, visual, kinesthetic, auditory, words to assist also in your techniques?
Yep, 100%. That's actually a great question. So those are called representational systems: visual, auditory, kinesthetic. We can also look at it from a learning styles perspective. And I actually did one of the videos, two of the videos actually incorporates this in the training that I did for the online component. And there's using their language, I can't see myself going back to work. Or if they describe their experience of that sensation, oh, it's like a red hot ember, and they're seeing that red. Well, we can use that color and change it. It also gives an understanding of how to communicate and develop that rapport. If you use the same system, visual, if they're using visual, and then we start to bring out visual things, or just, oh yeah, I can see that, well, you're going to develop that rapport. But it's also looking at the learning styles of the individual as well. Lorimer Mosley of NOI, way back, he put a NOI jam on, what was it? It was, oh, my mind is going just a little bit blank on that. Oh, how do you learn? That was it. That was that's a language pattern in itself. How do you learn? How do you learn best? And when you do that, you then, oh, I like to learn by, I usually listen to audiobooks when I'm driving, or, oh, I like to watch diagrams on the computer, or whatever it is. So that's a way that you can engage in those representational systems. And one deep dive that I'm not even having enough skill, at least I don't think so, maybe at an unconscious level, is that we have our primary representational system. For me, I'm kinesthetic, most of you physios are. My next is visual, and then my last one is auditory. And if I am engaging in that experience with a person and they start talking and how do you feel, how does that make you feel, bringing in the body, tune into your body, that kind of stuff is really going to get me. And then bring something about, yeah, and see that color, yeah, it's maybe a red. Then you can bring in an embedded commands using their auditory and hear your body making all of the changes to heal. And then boom, go back up to kinesthetic. It's a way to embed a command, just like the word because. Do your exercises because. That's an embedded command. So you can get real deep dive into this stuff. And that's a really great question. And hopefully I answered it enough to pique your curiosity to look into it more. All right, next question.
Next one was around the the question that you gave us about how are you coping? Topsy asked, can we say, are you coping okay? Or should we be saying, how are you coping?
That goes to using the word how. Remember, how is a process word. How are you coping today? It allows the person to kind of move in a direction. Whereas if you ask, are you coping today? It's a yes or a no answer. And you're limiting your ability to get information in that space. And if they say no, well, that's actually quite disempowering for that person. And they'll want to say yes. Is this close enough to, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Or are you coping today? Yeah, okay, I'm fine. It's that same kind of conclusion, using a closed loop to finish that conversation instead of how, using a process word. How are you coping allows for more of that truth, that language to come out. So that's a really great question. That's the kind of nuance that we can bring into the language and to understand how much power our words are as a physiotherapist. And just as a quick little sidebar on that, everyone here has had multiple clients that remember something a doctor or a specialist has said years ago, sometimes decades ago. They say, oh yeah, this one doctor said blah, 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 blah. And in that situation, that doctor is creating an emotion. They usually fear, stress, anxiety, and then giving in a command, an instruction. And that can completely annihilate someone. Someone with fibromyalgia who said, my doctor said, I won't die I won't die from it, but I'll die with it. Talking about fibromyalgia. That's just unhelpful. So that's a way that we can look at those nuances, and it's a really great question. So thanks for that one.
Another one now, have you found that you make any changes in your techniques when you are working with Maori who are strong in tikanga?
Yeah, I find, like, because I'm Pākehā, I'm from Canada, I know a limited amount of te reo. And I do feel, though, that the Maori patients that I have quite often are a little bit more engaging because it's a bit more of connecting with that natural part of themselves and the earth. I typically do with a lot of my patients, but especially if they're Maori and connecting in with this land, I'll do a grounding technique. So instead of kind of floating up into the sky, I get them to ground into the earth and connect with whakaari and the energy from that space. And I've had some really great success working with Maori, but I've also had quite a few that for other reasons don't connect with me. And that might be a bit because I'm Pākehā, I'm different, I'm this outsider wanting to get into that space and provide an opportunity, who knows? Hypnosis isn't a magic wand, I wish it was. It just, from my perspective, creates the most potential to work within a space. It's one of those modalities as a physiotherapist that I feel has the biggest impact to make a change. Yeah, keep going with the next question. If we have enough time after, I'll tell my biggest success story, but I'll keep going through the questions for now.
And the next couple relate specifically to your hypnotherapy. What would you recommend for ongoing training? Is Hypnotherapy NZ a good organisation? And can you please send the place you trained or pop it in the link?
Yeah. So I will, so Hypnosis New Zealand, I've been a part of them from the start. I'm just also going to, I can't type because I took away my keyboard to go for light. So I'm going to just tell you about it. So Hypnosis New Zealand, there's a few hypnosis organizations across New Zealand, and I haven't really heard anything bad about any of them. When I went through and looked at, as a physiotherapist, who I wanted to connect with, Hypnosis New Zealand seemed like a good fit. I talked to the owner of it, an operator, Justine Lett, and she's a great individual, and they put on training. So they put on full 5-day certifications that give you the basics of hypnosis principles, and anybody who goes to Damien and my course will actually get a $100 discount. So we're kind of working together so that we're a bit of a teaser. We're getting physios and health professionals interested in this space, and then we're sending to Justine at Hypnosis New Zealand. It's also just a really great community. It's a strange thing, but as a physiotherapist, I've never felt as connected as I do within the hypnosis community. I don't know what it is, and maybe it's part of the circumstances and the experiences that I've had, but it's a very putting everyone up type, like kind of raising everyone up type of a thing. Whereas physio, because especially in the private practice, there's still a little bit kind of battling, oh, this organization versus this, and I need to be better for this. Now, my slogan is, the more we all heal, the more we all heal. And I like to work with organizations that build you up, and Hypnosis New Zealand is definitely one of those. The organization that I learned from initially was Mike Mendel Hypnosis. They're from Toronto, Mike and Chris. They have a brain software podcast. I listened to a bunch of that before going in and doing the training. They have an online certification. And what I did was, as a physio, so this was 6 years ago, I think, I did their certification and took that to Physio Licensing Board and my insurance company and Physio New Zealand. And I kind of went to all of the organizations as a physio, and I said, hey, this is what I learned. I want to make sure I'm safe in using this tool. And it actually came down to the insurance. The insurance saw hypnosis as a modality, but it just tended to be used with psychologists more so than physio. So like, yeah, cool. No, it's just like any other CBD. You got to show that you have continued education in it, that you're searching, and you can do case studies and stuff like that. So that's how I got into it. But the simplest, best bang for the buck would be the 5-day course with Hypnosis New Zealand. Then you can call yourself a hypnophysio like us. Or I will say, a little bit cheeky, I want you to come to me. And I do eventually want to have a full training. But yeah, the Hypnosis New Zealand is the way to go. So great questions. Next.
I think that's all our questions that we've had from the floor.
Yeah. Well, I
Sorry,
just
my
saw one. Does your
laptop is
hypnosis get,
dying. Finding a plug.
oh, I just saw, does your hypnosis get funded by ACC? And that is a yes. I am a physiotherapist first, and I have a treatment modality of hypnosis. So that is how I interact in this space. So it would be just the same as being a physio, being Mackenzie accredited. You can use Mackenzie as a modality with your clients. You can use kinesiotape or massage. Those are unregulated professions. So hypnosis is currently an unregulated profession. And as long as you have training and show that you're safe and effective in using it, and have consent and write notes properly, yeah, I use hypnosis, and literally in every every treatment protocol I have right now, I'm using hypnosis. Maybe not every session, but during every process, I'm bringing it in, and can use it safely with children, brain injuries. I actually have part of my course is the safety considerations around hypnosis, which is something I wanted to have when I went into it, but it basically is one of the safer modalities. And yes, there's a whole line of hypnosis training you can do with youth and children. They're actually much more creative and imaginative, and can really get change quickly and well with it. And there's a book from, oh, I can't remember it, but if you work with children, send me an email at info@rethinkpainworkshop.com, and I will send you the link to the book with a whole bunch of different technical tools and techniques. And brain injury, whenever there's anything that you cannot get consent, it's the same type of a thing. If you're working with someone with Alzheimer's or brain injury, and they can't consent to a treatment, whether it's hands-on treatment or it's hypnosis, then you want to back off. But the actual effectiveness of it, if you do get consent, then it's a bit more of a challenge, because you have to kind of navigate that space and be in there with them. So it's more challenging. It doesn't mean that it's impossible, but it does add an aspect that makes it a bit more challenging. So I want to finish with a very quick story. My big success story happened about a year ago now, with a lady that was referred to me from a hand therapist in Tauranga. And she had had a injury 4 years prior to her hand. She fell, multiple fractured, 1 year conservative treatment that didn't work. They then did a plate and 1 year in a cast. And when she came out of the cast, she was dysfunctional movements, a lot of this ongoing consistent pain, persistent pain, and had a full pain management service from ACC. And the hand therapist was like, hands up, I don't know what to do. See about this guy. I've heard some interesting things. Came in. I have a video on test your hypnotic receptivity and reduce pain. So she watched that, and then came in for our very first session. I had enough of an understanding of her social history and the history that we kind of got a little bit. I wanted to hear her story, but we went right into hypnosis. And I used a clearance technique that I've kind of modified over time, which I teach in the course. And then this idea of, okay, counting up to 5, coming back, her eyes wouldn't open. She was like, I can't open my eyes. It's like, okay. And she was laughing about it. It's like, this is ridiculous. And so I thought, well, we need more work. So I went back into that space and did the Freddie Jacqueline arrow up into space, shoot back down. And she then kind of 1 to 5, boom, eyes open. She's like, oh, okay. And we start talking, but then she went, boom, she comes forward in the chair. And before, her movement in her hand, she had to prime it with her other one. She would kind of be like this, and it's slow, or she'd actually need to move it. She just starts to move her hand, and she's just like mesmerized, like it's one of those gymnastic ribbons. She's like, the pain's gone. I feel stiffness, but that ongoing pain that I felt for years, it's gone. And the movement, like I just feel free. And that continued. I had a couple more sessions where we just fine-tuned some of the things. And a month ago, just before Christmas, I caught up with her, because some of these patients, clients, I want to know, hey, did this last? It's a question that any physio would have. She says she continued to improve, and now she's working on other parts of her body, and had a really interesting bonus as well. For the years, even before the accident, she would scream in her mind a few times a day, all throughout the day. Something happens, she would just be like, scream in her mind. And it just became normal. After that single hypnosis session, she said she didn't realize it for a few weeks. It's quiet. I'm not screaming anymore. Huh. And it was a scream that started after the grief of her mother, who died very quickly. And I think traumatically as well. I can't remember the specifics, but one session, that's that potential. That's why I see hypnosis as something that I use and I love, because that one session created a massive change, and she's continued to improve from that space. I don't know any other treatment that I've learned as a physio that has that potential, because she's done it all. She had a pain management service, probably hundreds of sessions with other therapists, one session with hypnosis. That's not everybody. That's my big case. That's my one that I know I'm in the right field and I'm doing what I love and I want to teach it. But that's the potential that I bring. So thank you very much, man. 2 hours and we're 3 minutes under. Whew, what a rise. Thank you so much.
There's one final question there, Daniel,
yeah.
just asking about, is it safe to use with children, brain injured children?
Yep, so I did address that one a little bit ago. It's yes and yes, but you just have to take it in a different approach and have make sure you have informed consent. But yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. I think everybody has got lots from this evening's session listening to you. We've all got 10 brilliant phrases that we can take our pick and have a try with tomorrow. And
not have a try.
at...
Just doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely I'm sure that you will easily fill your first course, and there looks like there is a question there's people asking there's people asking if there's going to be more later in the year, so I think you should look at booking yourself some more slots, and I'm sure people will be willing. One finally, do you just practice in Whakatane?
So that's where my clinic is on Wednesdays and Thursdays. I do have an arrangement with up the coast, and I work at Omaio on Tuesdays, and then with my pain management service contracts, and I work with Veterans Affairs as well. Some of those I travel with from anywhere in the Eastern Bay, but I also do Zoom sessions. So I work with people all around New Zealand, working with their problems from Zoom, because just like you saw in this session, even with no context and doing multiple people at the same time, change can happen. So when you have that one-on-one, that's why hypnosis is a great modality for this kind of age of COVID and these things. I can work with people online too. So thanks for letting me share that.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. We look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Good night.